Hey everybody, and welcome back to English Podcast Adventures. I'm Michael, and today we're going on a deep dive into something pretty familiar, I think, to all of us. The English language.
Yes.
You're using it right now to listen to me, but
Right.
have you ever thought about how this language we use every single day
Yeah.
came to be?
Yeah. It's amazing how often we use something and we don't really know
Right.
the background of it.
Yeah.
It's a really, really fascinating trip with a lot of twists and turns and a lot of invasions and some borrowing.
Yeah.
And it can actually help you make sense of English a little bit more when you know the background.
So, if you're ready to unlock some secrets of the English language, maybe impress your friends with some fun facts at a party, stick with us. And please don't forget to hit that like button. And subscribe to our channel for more awesome English learning content.
Yeah.
All right. Let's dive in.
Let's go.
Especially, for you out there who are learning English, this might be a really fun one for you to listen to because we're going to trace all the way back to the very beginnings of this crazy language that we speak.
Yeah, it's quite a story.
Yeah, so we're going to be using just this really cool overview of the history of English.
All right.
And yeah, we're just going to kind of like go through the major periods and see, how do we go from, whatever it was back then to what we speak today.
Right. And it's pretty amazing to think that, English used to sound completely different.
Like completely different.
Yeah, completely different than it does now.
So, okay, let's rewind the clock way back.
Way back.
To like the 5th century,
Into BCE?
No.
CE?
CE.
Common Era.
5th century CE.
Yeah.
We're talking about a time before English even existed. So, like, paint us a picture. Who were the folks who were, like, laying the groundwork for the sounds we'd eventually call English?
Well, this is when we first meet the Anglo-Saxons and Jutes.
Okay.
And they were these Germanic tribes that came over from, continental Europe across the North Sea.
Okay.
And they settled in England, bringing their own languages and dialects with them.
So there was no, like, England yet, right?
No, not really. I mean, not in a sense that we think of it.
Right. It was just like a bunch of different
tribes and groups.
And they were all speaking.
Different dialects.
Oh, so it was a little bunch of different
Germanic
dialects that all kind of like...
Exactly. They started to blend together. And that mixing and mingling of these dialects formed what we now call Old English.
Old English. All right. So this is like the great-great-great-great-great-granddaddy of...
Yeah, the ancestors.
Of English, right?
Yeah.
So, like, how different are we talking here?
Well, if you heard Old English spoken today, you would think it was a completely foreign language.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You wouldn't understand a word.
Wow.
Yeah, like, for example, let's take the epic poem Beowulf.
I've heard of Beowulf.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's a famous line, right, we Gardena in Geardagum.
Okay, I'm already lost. Yeah.
And that translates to, listen, we of the Spear Danes in days of yore.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's
Old English.
Old English.
For you.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so the words themselves are totally different. The sentence structure.
It's a whole different world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so Old English is like the foundation.
The groundwork.
Okay, so then what happened?
Well, this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Imagine the scene. It's the year 1066.
Oh, yeah, 1066.
William the Conqueror arrives from Normandy.
Okay.
And he speaks
I'll do this one.
French.
Yep.
This is the Norman invasion, and it completely shook up the linguistic landscape of England.
So all of a sudden you've got English and French.
Yeah, coexisting.
And I imagine they start to, like...
Influence each other,
right?
Exactly.
So, like, what kind of impact did this clash of languages have on the development of English?
Well, it led to the birth of what we call Middle English.
Middle English, okay.
And over centuries, English started to absorb tons of French vocabulary and grammar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this is why English has such a rich vocabulary even today.
Right.
It can be a blessing and a curse for language learners.
A blessing and a curse.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah.
So it's like the language itself got conquered and transformed?
In a way, yeah.
So do you have like a favorite example of this, like English-French fusion?
I do actually think about food.
Food, okay.
The words for common farm animals like cow and sheep, those come from Old English.
Okay.
Because that was the language of the farmer.
The everyday people.
Exactly.
Okay.
But when those animals ended up on the plates of the French-speaking upper class, we get words like beef and mutton.
which come from French.
Beef and mutton. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a delicious reminder of the social dynamics at play.
It is a delicious reminder. That is so cool.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating how those, historical events still have an impact on the English we speak today.
Oh, absolutely.
So this evolution, it didn't stop there, right?
No, not at all. Just imagine the Renaissance.
Oh, the Renaissance.
This explosion of art and science and culture.
Yeah.
And English went through another fascinating transformation during this time.
So, English is now soaking up all sorts of new words and ideas.
Exactly.
From all this, intellectual growth that was happening.
Yeah, scholars were rediscovering classical knowledge.
Right.
And they needed new words to express these complex concepts.
So where did they go for these words?
They borrowed heavily from Latin and Greek.
Oh, so that's where we get all those words.
Yeah, words like philosophy, architecture, astronomy, all entered the English vocabulary during this period.
It makes sense. English was becoming more sophisticated, more nuanced. Right.
Okay, but what about all those tricky spellings?
Ooh, yeah.
And silent letters?
Yeah?
You know, the things that trip up English language learners all the time.
All the time.
When did those appear?
Well, this brings us to a pivotal invention. The printing press.
The printing press.
William Caxton brought it to England in 1476.
Oh, hey.
And this helped standardize spelling.
Okay, which is good.
Which is good, right?
Yeah.
But around the same time, something called the Great Vowel Shift happened.
The Great Vowel Shift. What?
It sounds strange, but the pronunciation of vowels in English actually went through a dramatic change.
Really?
Yeah, for example, the word time.
Time.
Used to be pronounced more like team.
Team.
And house sounded more like hoose.
Hoose. Wow.
Yeah, it's like a game of telephone where the sounds changed slightly each time they were passed on.
Okay, so that explains so much about English spelling.
It does. It really does.
Okay, so all these words were spelled before these pronunciation changes took hold. And now we're stuck with all these silent letters and confusing vowel combinations.
Yeah, like the K in night.
The K in night.
Yeah, that's a relic of the Great Vowel Shift.
So the Great Vowel Shift is like English deciding to play a prank on everyone.
You could say that.
Who's trying to learn it today.
Yeah.
Oh, man, this is fascinating stuff. And I feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, it is.
Right? So English goes through this huge transformation during the Renaissance. It gets all these new words, it standardizes spelling, it goes through this crazy vowel shift.
Yeah.
And then what happens?
Well, then English sets sail.
Oh, boy.
And starts to spread across the globe, encountering new languages and cultures along the way.
I can't wait to hear about this.
It's quite a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating to think about how English didn't just spread outward, but it also absorbed words and phrases from all the cultures it encountered, enriching its vocabulary even further.
Yeah, it's like English was this, intrepid explorer going around, picking up souvenirs from every corner of the world. That's a great analogy.
So when did this global expansion really start to take off?
Well, the 17th and 18th centuries were a pivotal time.
Okay.
The British Empire was expanding across continents.
Right.
And wherever it went, English went with it.
Okay.
It became the language of administration, trade, and education in colonies across the Americas, Africa, Asia, and Australia.
That is a massive influence.
Yeah.
But you mentioned earlier that it wasn't just a one-way street.
Right.
English was also shaped by the languages and cultures that it encountered.
Absolutely. English has this amazing ability to adapt and incorporate words from other languages.
We call those loanwords, right?
Yeah, loanwords, and they're scattered throughout the English vocabulary.
Do you have some examples?
Yeah, sure. So, for example, we get shampoo and bungalow from Hindi,
Okay.
sugar and cotton from Arabic, and canoe and hurricane from indigenous American languages.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's incredible how those words have become so integrated into everyday English.
It really highlights how interconnected languages and cultures are. Yeah, and this exchange continues to this day, right?
Oh, absolutely. English is constantly evolving, absorbing new words and phrases, reflecting the changing world around us.
It's a living language.
It is. It's always in motion.
Always in motion.
Yeah.
I like that. So speaking of a changing world,
Yeah.
how did English adapt to the rise of science and technology?
Well, the Industrial Revolution, which began in the late 18th century,
Okay.
was another turning point for the English language.
Okay.
New inventions and technologies demanded new words.
Like what?
Well, think about engine electricity, telephone.
Oh, yeah?
These terms entered the English lexicon as the world was rapidly transforming.
It makes sense that language would need to keep up with all those incredible advancements.
It did.
So English is particularly good at adapting and absorbing new words.
It is, and it wasn't just about new inventions. English also became the language of science.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, a key figure in this shift was Isaac Newton,
Isaac Newton.
who made the groundbreaking decision to write his scientific works in English rather than Latin,
Latin.
which was the traditional language of scholarship at the time.
So Isaac Newton was not only a scientific genius,
Right.
but a language revolutionary.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was a significant moment in the history of English, solidifying its role in the world of intellectual inquiry and scientific discovery.
And this is all happening as we're moving into the 20th century.
Exactly.
So English is now really starting to cement its place as like a global language.
Right.
But the 20th century was a turbulent time.
Oh, yeah.
World wars, the rise of new superpowers.
Absolutely.
How did those events shape the trajectory of English?
Well, the 20th century, despite its challenges, propelled English to even greater prominence on the world stage.
Okay.
The two world wars, while devastating,
Right.
also had the unintended consequence of spreading English even further.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, you had soldiers from different countries interacting and communicating, often using English as a common language.
Oh, okay.
And after the wars, the United States emerged as a global superpower.
Right.
And its influence, along with the rise of Hollywood and American popular culture,
Yes.
had a huge impact on the global spread of English.
It's fascinating how pop culture, like movies and music, can actually contribute to the popularity of the language.
It really does.
And then, of course, we have the internet,
Oh, yeah.
which I imagine has just accelerated this trend.
Absolutely. The internet has acted like a linguistic superhighway connecting people from all over the world, and with English being the dominant language online.
Yeah.
It's no surprise that it continues to grow in popularity, especially for people learning English as a second language.
So looking back, it's just incredible to think about how far English has come
Yeah,
from those early Germanic roots to this global phenomena.
it's quite a journey.
It really is. It's a testament to its adaptability and resilience.
Absolutely.
So next time you're using a word in English, think about the journey that word has taken to get to your mouth. That's a great point. It makes you appreciate the language even more. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the history of English, hit that like button and subscribe to English Podcast Adventures
Yes.
for more awesome English learning content. We've got tons of videos with tips and tricks and fascinating facts about the English language.
Yeah.
Until next time, happy learning.
Happy learning.